The story begins in 1768 in Corsica. For centuries, the island was a Genoese possession, but separatist revolts forced Genoa to ask help from the French army. In the end, the sovereignty of the island is ceded to France. The following year, Napoleon Bonaparte is born into a noble family from Ajaccio. He grows up with his 7 brothers and sisters, and when he turns 9, is sent to the military school in Brienne-Champagne. Napoleon, a good student, is admitted to the military academy in Paris, where he specializes in artillery. The following year, at age 16, he is appointed second lieutenant of the artillery in Valence. In France, the economic situation is catastrophic. The 7 Years' War and the American Revolutionary War have emptied the coffers of the country. Louis XVI, struggling with the country's financial difficulties, summons to Versailles representatives of the clergy, the nobility, and the Third Estate, that is the people, to find a solution to the crisis. After disagreements, Third Estate officials seize power by founding the National Assembly. While in Paris, insurgents take over the royal fortress of Bastille. The revolutionaries vote for ending feudal privileges and adopt the Declaration of the Rights of the Man and the Citizen. King Louis XVI is then forcibly taken to Paris, from where he later tries to flee with his family to a royalist stronghold. But they are spotted and stopped on the way. Initially, European monarchies remained mute about the French Revolution, seeing the weakening of their French competitor as a good thing. But the arrest of Louis XVI make them fear that revolutionary ideas might spread across the continent and threaten their thrones. Prussia and Austria then combine forces to try and restore the French monarchy. War breaks out, with the French armies in poor condition. Facing the Allied army advance on Paris, the revolutionaries panic and execute all opponents of the revolution. But eventually, an unexpected victory of the French army pushes the coalition back beyond the country's borders. The revolutionaries regain confidence and proclaim the Republic. Louis XVI is then tried and guillotined, further angering European monarchies. The coalition strengthens, while on the French side, conscriptions swell up the ranks of the army. Within the country, clashes between royalist and counter-revolutionary forces cause civil wars. Napoleon and his family, who support the revolution, are driven away by Corsican separatists. In Toulon, royalists seize the city and receive the military support of Britain and Spain, that enter the harbour of Toulon with their armies. After the French army fails to retake the city, Napoleon is summoned to replace the artillery commander who was injured. Assessing the situation, he suggests a new plan. Instead of attacking from the north, he proposes seizing the forts south of the harbour to install his artillery and attack the Allied fleet. His plan proves successful, and the city is taken back in 2 days. Napoleon's decisive intervention earns him a promotion. But in Paris, a new coup overthrows the government and Napoleon loses his title. A year later, a royalist revolt breaks out in Paris and he is put in charge of quelling the rebellion, giving him an opportunity to prove his loyalty for the new government. He orders his men to fire on the crowd, killing 200 people and ending the insurgency. As a reward, Napoleon is given command of the French army of Italy. Before leaving Paris, Napoleon marries Josephine, with whom he had fallen madly in love. She is the widow of a guillotined viscount and a mother of 2. Napoleon joins his army, which he finds in poor state. His men are poorly fed, badly equipped, and no longer paid. Napoleon would assume the role of their charismatic leader and motivates his troops by promising them the riches of northern Italy. At this time, 2 armies are stationed there, a Piedmontese army and an Austrian one. Napoleon is outnumbered and knows that if both armies unite, he would have no chance. His plan is to speedily advance his troops, place them in between both armies, and fight them separately. On April 10, he launches his attack. The plan works, and after a few battles, he defeats the Kingdom of Sardinia. Reeling from the attack, the Austrian army retreats to Milan and stations some troops along the Po River to prevent Napoleon from crossing. Napoleon sends over a small part of his army as a diversion while the bulk of his troops cross the river further east. This move threatens to break the Austrian line of communication, thus isolating its army, which then withdraws from Milan without fighting and flees eastward. For a year, Napoleon maintains an advantage thanks to his troops' speedy movement and because Austrian forces divide itself into smaller armies. Eventually, Napoleon's army threatens Vienna, forcing the Emperor of Austria to seek an armistice. Napoleon negotiates and himself signs a peace treaty. He obtains the annexation of the Austrian Netherlands and pushes the boundaries of the country to the Rhine. Austria receives the Republic of Venice and recognizes the new Italian republics created by Napoleon. Upon his return to Paris, Napoleon is welcomed as a hero. The government now asks him to invade Britain, the last enemy of France. But England has control over the seas and Napoleon is aware of the risk that this entails. He instead suggests attacking Britain where they least expect it. By seizing Egypt, he thinks he can threaten the important colony of India. The government accepts the proposal. As for them, this young general, who is a bit too ambitious and influential, is less dangerous while he is on mission. Napoleon leaves from Toulon with hundreds of ships carrying a 40,000-man army. Along the way, he captures Malta, while British Admiral Nelson, not knowing Napoleon's final destination, tries looking for him. Nelson reaches Alexandria before Napoleon and continues searching for him northward.